Welcome to Athlete Complete, where we host raw and open conversations about the details that impact performance from current and former professional athletes for parents, players, coaches, and fans. It's
So that one got in there for sure.
All right, so we're gonna go a little lighter today. The episodes that we've recorded have been fascinating, a little heavy. So we're gonna take it a little lighter. So we're gonna spin the wheel of topics, and I'll sort of preview the different topics that we can cover today. So we're gonna start superstitions. What actually happens in the locker room? Pukes or shits during games? The most hilarious fan interactions? Hazing, yay or nay? And thoughts on Zin during games. We can build from there. Who's the first to roll the dice?
Oh, look at Brad. We just got our
Brad's
first
up.
sponsorship.
Right. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
Start.
Yeah, baby.
No, kick it off. You asked the first question, Sean.
Okay. All right. So here we go. We'll take it from the very top. So, what actually happens in a professional locker room? Like, what? I mean, is it like middle school gym class, or is it worse?
Well, it's definitely worse. I mean, you've learned things by the time you're 30 years old that you still have the same exact mindset going into the locker room every single morning. The best part about my experience was, living on the east side. I had Andy Rose living 2 doors down. Chad Marshall lived 10 houses down, and then Eric Freeberg was here. And if you put all 4 of us together, it's pretty much game over. And so that was an everyday carpool for 2 or 3 years. And we'd stop at French Bakery, get our cappuccino and croissant, and then go to training, and then just the chaos begins. And the best times. They are the best time. If we all reflect now and get back together, those are the times we remember. We don't even talk about the soccer games. We only talk about like the shit that we got into while being in the carpool, the stuff we talked about. And it's way worse than a middle school locker room, that's for sure. But in a good way. I don't know. Does anyone else think different? Sounds like there's radio fucking silence.
No,
Just listening to you, man. Just letting you
I'm
go.
just thinking about. I didn't realize that was your carpool group because my carpool group was Jaquaa, Facito, which is that's a thing in itself. Roger, like we all lived on Upper Queen Anne, so we had that pocket up in Upper Queen Anne, and I mean that included carpooling down and then nights out and everything else in that little neighborhood, and so it was a pretty interesting time. I mean, I think anytime you get a group like that together, Facito's personality and the shit that he talks about and his bluntness is comical in itself. But then you get Roger,
who's
coming
now
into a
my
locker.
roommate.
No way.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
a roommate?
Yeah, he lives with me.
Sick.
Well, we live
Jeez.
together.
Wow,
He's right here.
full circle. What's he doing in there?
Bang that wall. Cameo.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely different because then you get guys like Roger doing nude yoga in the middle of the locker room, so you see some stuff that you're not scientifically supposed to see. Throwing soap on
we
each
didn't have
other's
that.
back. You guys need to level up because it was interesting.
Yeah, soccer might be the most open and accepting of nudity and anything involving the body in probably all of professional sports.
We had some
Yeah.
nudity, but not naked yoga in the middle of the locker
Chad
room,
Marshall
that's for sure.
doing naked gorilla crawls all around the locker room, just fucking everyone's locker room up.
God.
Dude, I'll tell you a story. We were in a national team camp, and it was late in our career. This is 2014, I think. So really late for Chad and I. Actually, I think it was 2015. It was when Bruce came in after. So wait, that would have been like 2016. Jesus, that was late. We were in our 30s. And there was a bunch of youngsters that were in there that just were shell shocked. And you always train down in Southern California, and those locker rooms, it's just a giant open shower that's huge because there's so many teams that come in and out of there. And there's a bunch of youngsters, and I think it was Jordan still brings up this story, Jordan Morris, and I'm showering and I've got like soap in my hair, right? And it's like getting in my eyes, I can tell. And I'm facing into the locker room, back to the wall. Chad's across from me, probably like, 20 feet. And I didn't know this at the time. My eyes are closed. He's directly across. And there's 20 other guys in the shower, young guys that had no idea who this Chad Marshall guy is. And he gets down on his back and then puts his legs up against the wall and pushes as hard as he can across the floor and completely undercuts my ankles, destroyed my ankle, and I land like face down on top of him. I've got soap in my eyes, like destroy him on the floor, and everyone in the shower is just like, what the fuck is going on right now? I thought this was like the highest level. We're getting invited to this camp, and it still goes on at that level.
Oh my God.
Dude,
it's like every time I see Jordan.
That Columbus Crew locker room, I mean, 'cause I went there the year after
back in the day.
There.
Yeah.
Whoa. You just saw some stuff. Yeah, the comfort level in that locker room was shocking.
Different level in that one. Yeah.
It makes a lot of things make a lot of sense.
That's a very fond story.
There's some of that in Major League Baseball locker rooms, but I don't think that much. I think it used to be more. I think there's more of that stuff like right before I got to the big leagues, but not as much. Like we had like a guy who would dance naked after he won a game. He'd dance this song and kind of do like the handstand twerk after the game, ass naked. But I'm trying to think like shower stuff, not twerk. Really.
Shower
I don't
stuff.
know. Yeah, there wasn't nothing crazy like that. But I did hear stories from like other guys before I got to the big leagues. Like apparently Jay Buhner was just crazy.
Oh yeah, I've heard about some of those stories too.
Yep.
Is that stuff tolerated anymore?
I mean, I think it's tolerated, but like not as much. I guess I don't know if it's like the whole like cell phone thing, and like everything's like somewhat could be recorded now or whatever. I don't know if that's like a piece of it, but. I feel like there's not as much of that. I didn't notice that in LA or Boston or New York. Seattle, not really. Like maybe early days, there was more of it for me, like 2013, 14, 15 type thing, but I can't really remember anything specific.
Man.
I mean, if you think about it, right? Like you're grown men playing a game, and that's an easy way to keep things fun is by getting a bunch of soap in your hand in the shower and winging it at your buddy across the room, right? It just lightens the mood. It just chills out. I mean, obviously, our college experience in the locker rooms. Sometimes we would shower. Just some of the worst, just the gnarliest facilities, like Humboldt State shower and locker room was just an absolute abysmal. And we trashed the place. I mean, soap everywhere, like, sliding around in the shower, doing the mangina, especially after a win. It's fun, it's fun. It's like you kind of don't take it for granted. You loosen up a little bit. I am curious though, like, why do you think soccer is a little bit more zesty than baseball?
I don't know, man.
It's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I think it's always been that way in soccer. If you talk to anyone in any locker room, it's pretty much the exact same. I don't know how it is like playing overseas and stuff, but I don't know. But one thing I do reflect on is I think we got really lucky with like our assistant coaches because no one wants to go and talk to the head coach, right? And so anytime I saw Ziggy walk into the locker room, I would just walk out the other exit because I didn't want to have a conversation. I had no interest in hearing what he had to say at the time. I just wanted to play and be with my buddies. I didn't want him to like see me, make eye contact, and be like, "Hey, why don't we have a chat?" Just get out. But our assistant coaches were always really good, right? In Columbus, I played with Ezra Hendrickson, who was from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, had an amazing MLS career. And then he became an assistant coach with the Sounders after that 2008 season when we came here in 2009. And he always had like a great pulse for what it was like to be a player and be in the locker room. And so he would come in and actually joke around with us, which was huge, right? I could commiserate with him about our head coach, assistant coach, whatever it was. And I knew that it wasn't going to go to those guys. It was always in that joking manner. And for a player to be able to vent to an assistant coach, I always thought was really important. And then when he left, we got Jimmy Traore, who had played, everywhere in the world, right? EPL for Liverpool, like been a part of some of the biggest locker rooms in the world. He won a Champions League with Liverpool, so no stranger to success. And then he came as a player first with the Sounders, started to feel what the locker room was like, and then became an assistant coach. So he was that next guy that we could actually talk to and have a good joking conversation. And now the Sounders have Andy Rose, which is a former player. He was part of my carpool. And I think it's that, like, you have to have those guys, right? You can have the Preckies who are, like, really serious. And he was a 3-time MVP in the league, the only person to ever do it 3 times. But he's pretty serious. You can't really, like, whatever you say to him is probably going to go to Schmetz. And you got Tommy Dutra, but he's a goalkeeper coach. And then you've got Freddie, who came from a different team, didn't really know what the Sounders locker room was like. So I just think it's really important. The Sounders have done a really good job of having those guys that you can actually like talk shit with, who are coaches, and it's not going to get back to the big man. Because I think it's important to vent, but that creates like a great locker room too. It just builds that trust.
You need that really trust. Cool. You need to be able to speak to that person and have the safety that that's not going to get back. And they're smart enough to decipher if you're venting about something or just, is this just something you need to get off your chest, or is this a problem that we need to address? And having someone like Andy Rose, who's not far removed from playing and is an intelligent guy and a great guy, he's perfect for that kind of stuff. I mean, it's awesome. I don't know if they have that stuff in baseball, but
is that a team hire? Like, does a team hire those guys?
Yeah, I mean they're assistant coaches, so
yeah.
Gotcha. The GM will usually reach out and try to pick the guys that they think would fit best, and then it goes to the head coach, and they kind of decide who they want in the locker room as well.
Yeah, it sounds like those guys are big for like building culture, like having a coach like that. I was talking to Marco Gonzalez a couple days ago, and he was saying like having a guy like that in big league locker rooms would be huge, like baseball locker rooms. And we were saying like, what if it was a guy that was hired by like the MLBPA, that came in on each team? They had a guy that was like an ex-player, somebody who wanted a job, just kind of being like the culture, person. And a guy for the players to vent to, or whatever, and someone who wasn't necessarily being paid by the team, so they didn't feel like they had to report everything. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. And I had another thought about what maybe keeps baseball maybe a tad more serious is like the fact that there's a game every day. I think guys are like getting ready for games just a bit more locked in. I think that if like we were practicing, I don't know how many times you guys practice, 4 or 5 times a week, whatever it is. And there wasn't a game that day, it would be a lot looser, I think, than if there was a game every day. I would imagine that for you guys, if you were getting ready for a game every day, the mentality might be different in the locker room.
Yep, totally. That's a great point.
Yeah. Just because you're always, it's like, okay.
Game day mentality.
Yeah, it's game day. Yeah. Another one. It's another one. Lock it in. Quit playing grab ass and cracking jokes. Yeah,
and there's a little bit of that. Just not. It doesn't sound like quite as much, I think, just because like it gets to a point where it's like, all right, I'm getting ready to go compete,
Yep.
Yeah.
Very
Good.
true.
All right, I want to transition.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, one more thought. Yeah. So, go ahead. All right.
Somebody go.
So a lot of the television series where they look like what's the HBO series they do with the football teams? I'm blanking on it. It's not 30 for 30. That's a good one. It's
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. Yeah. Hard Knocks. So in Hard Knocks, we get to see a lot of the aspects. Obviously, we don't see everything, but we get to see some of the some of the rituals and some of the the onboarding and how guys are fighting for squads. And some of the hazing rituals are fun, right? It's like go up there and sing a silly song. College at a liberal arts school that Ben and I went to, hazing got pretty out of control and kind of stopped after we kind of left, because some of the rituals included icy hot on women's underwear and running through the local mall. You got to make it from one end to the other, buzz cuts. Edward 40 hands. I mean, some pretty intense.
You did that to me.
Yeah.
The buck stopped with you.
Well, I think after we left, I think it must have stopped with you or whoever the class was afterward, either for lack of creativity or, word got around.
It just got dumb. I mean, guys got less creative. It was more about a drinking environment and everything. It was
embarrassment.
It wasn't fun. It was just like, that's just dumb.
Yeah.
You guys were creative. It was. I still fondly remember our hazing, and I thought it was a great time. I totally understand why it's been shut down now. But
does that happen?
Ours was much more bonding than it was than anything else.
Yeah.
Soccer professionally was pretty mellow. It's just sing a song.
Karaoke,
sing a song. It's basically just a little karaoke. You go out for a team meal in preseason. If you've made the team, then you can perform then usually. So you rent a room in the back of a restaurant, and then you get up on a chair and sing your song. So similar to Hard Knocks, or I don't know what, maybe baseball as well, but that's the extent of it. Nothing crazy, but college was nuts. That is, you hear the horror stories about college, and I think appropriately so. I think most coaches probably have had them sign some sort of agreement that says we're not doing that, because at the end of the day, it's the coach's job on the line now, and with social media especially,
right?
And I don't think that's the right way to do it anyways. Like, there's other ways to build team culture and team morale versus embarrassing someone. I mean, we had to dress up like girls and in women's underwear and go get the signatures from the women's team in college, and then with crazy haircut, and not something that if I was a coach would fly these days. No. Like, go play dodgeball or go play paintball or go rock climbing, something that actually has some meaning behind it. So
what's hazing like in baseball, James?
Well, we do the whole sing a song thing. We do like an interview with the team, like the team, kind of whoever runs the mic on the bus. We do it on the bus normally. So you'll bring the rookies up to the front of the bus. There's a mic on the buses. They kind of sing a song. We ask them some questions, that kind of stuff. First sex experience, that those types of things. And then when I first came to the league, we were still doing the team dress up. We did that for like maybe 3 or 4 more years, and then that got banged. I was in fishnets and the long hair for one of our flights. I think it was from I forget where, like St. Louis to LA or something like that. And, that was pretty uncomfortable, but we stopped doing that dress up after a few years, I think, just because of the whole social media thing and people getting their feelings hurt and whatnot. So, we stopped doing that part of it, and we had a dinner like my rookie year, but I can't remember doing it to any other team. We had a dinner in St. Louis where they rented out like a back room, same sort of deal. And I had to get up in front of everybody and sing. All the rookies did. I actually couldn't sing because I was getting ready with some buddies. And my buddy was taking a shower. 2 of us were in the room hanging out, and he had some edibles. And he was like, yo, you guys have some of that, and then we'll go to the dinner, right? But I hadn't really done much of that, many edibles, and I didn't know how much to take. So there was these candy bars out there, and my buddy and I each took a candy bar and ate it. And my buddy comes out of the shower. He's like, "Dude, did you guys eat that whole thing?" And we're like, "Yeah." Turns out it was I don't even know how much, 50 milligrams each is what we had, and we couldn't talk. I didn't think I was gonna make it, dude. I couldn't even speak. I couldn't eat my steak, and couldn't drink nothing. So we got to this dinner, and I'm everything's hazy. I can't make out words. We're supposed to go out and sing, so I couldn't do it. So I had to dance. So I did this dance that I did with a buddy of mine in the grad talent show in high school. We did the Starsky and Hutch dance.
Oh yeah.
So I just ripped that and got booed, got off the stage real quick, and then went back to being a mute because I couldn't form words. Yeah.
Disaster.
I didn't know where that story was going. That's good, dude.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my rookie experience.
It is interesting to think about, though, with our experience, Sean. And I mean, on paper, it sounded horrible. That sounds terrible. But
yeah,
I don't know if it's because I was playing and I was a freshman playing, and it made me really feel integrated with the older guys. I don't have a clue what it felt like to be like a freshman who was redshirting, going through that same experience. Like, I'd be curious if they hated it, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, it's borderline abuse, to like legit borderline abuse, coercion, and the whole point of these rituals, these initiation processes, are to like bring you into the culture, get over yourself. I don't care if you were, if you're a full scholarship freshman. I don't care if you're the big shot and you were all conference coming in, like you're one of us now. And so it's like a leveling to a certain extent. It's like, okay, get over yourself. We're gonna shave your hair. We're gonna duct tape 40 bottles to your hands. Like that binge drinking, that's where it gets super scary, especially for like people who are just really not used to that. And fuck, I mean, in retrospect, pretty dangerous. But the aim is the same as singing a song and getting embarrassed. Is like, I'm one of you. I feel closeness with you. We're buddies now. We're brothers now. But I like the paintball. Paintball's kind of just the same thing, like centering someone out or attacking away, like to build that camaraderie and brotherhood. I think is. I wonder what women's teams are like. I wonder what sort of stuff they do. Probably something similar. Sing a song or.
We should have asked Sam Hyatt or whomever.
Yeah.
I think so. I had a bad experience when I was a rookie in MLS. So I got drafted to Columbus, and then we were actually in Scottsdale in my hometown. So I was like stoked to be there for preseason. Friends are coming to watch the games, family. And then on the last night of the trip, going back to Columbus, that's your chance to like let loose. So all the veteran guys were in one room, and me and this other guy named Aaron Chandler, we were both rookies and we were rooming together, and they invited us over. And then as soon as we get in, they're like, hey, we need more beer. So then we go down and we buy more beer and we bring it up, and they're like, oh yeah, we need more. So then we go down, walk to the store, come back, and we're like, what the fuck are we doing, dude? This is so stupid. And then we finally get in and everyone's sitting down having a bevy, and most of the guys are toast at this point. And there's probably like 10 guys in the room, and at that time in Columbus and Major League Soccer, like everyone's coming out of college, right? And so the better players are going to be in that room. And Frankie Hayduk, who was like World Cup, played one of the biggest players ever for the US, was roasted. And we're sitting there and he's kind of like singling me out, doing his like hazing thing, and it got to the point where he was like, who the fuck do you think you are? And then he goes around the room like, he was an All-American, he was an All-American, he was an All-American, who the fuck? And I was like, all right, I'm out. So I got up to leave, and he thought that I was like getting up to fight him. And he's like belligerent. So then he like gets in my face, and I'm like, dude, what? I have to get out of here. And then finally someone like separates us, and I got back to the room, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, is this really what the next level is like? Like guys just getting hammered and yelling at each other and trying to prove this like machismo thing. And looking back on it, it was like, this is so dumb. But it made me think, like, I don't want anyone else to come into a locker room and feel like I did. It was like this real turning point learning experience for me. And it's still, like, I can put myself in that exact moment of how I felt in that moment. It was like the shittiest feeling I had, like, ever had, especially as a professional. You think you're going to the next level, and then all of a sudden it gets dumbed down to, like, a college per se experience. Yeah. And that sucked. It was just not a good not a great experience. One of my tough, like idols, right, getting in my face, and then ever after that, I don't think he even remembered it, but I remembered it. I played with him for the next 2 years, and we were okay, but I always felt like there was, like, in the corner of his mind, he still remembered that moment. Or maybe there was something in his mind that was an emotion from that moment that he didn't really remember the exact moment, but had that feeling in the back of his mind towards me. And it was never like a great relationship after that. It was like set up for failure in that moment.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
It must have been a weird experience.
It was a really weird experience. It sucked.
Anytime you're throwing alcohol in the mix and to that level, like, it's a crapshoot whether it's going to work out or not, And I think for me back in college, I had a good experience at ours, but that was just my personal experience. And then the years after, it just seemed to get more dumber and more challenging from an alcohol standpoint versus anything else. Like, drink this, drink more, and it's just like, this isn't creative. This is just like more shock value and what are we doing to these kids and why? I mean, when you did it, I felt like, again, being brought into a team, like I felt safe. Even though we were doing that stuff, I felt safe psychologically. I felt safe, like I wasn't going to get hurt doing anything. After that, it's more like punishment for coming on this team. Why are we punishing these people for joining the team? This is weird.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like they explain, when they're doing it. It's not like they explain oh, this is because we're trying to do this. It's just sort of like, I don't know if somewhere it kind of got lost in translation, like that game Telephone, and you're like, this is why we're doing this. Maybe it was communicated at one point with one group of players and they were like, yeah, we're doing this to build camaraderie, whatever. But then it just stops getting talked about and all of a sudden it turns into, abuse like you're talking about because there is no kind of aim of what you're trying to accomplish. And, your ideas earlier of the paintball, the rock climbing, whatever, that kind of stuff can build camaraderie too. And all it is breaking down walls and building experiences together because that's how you build team chemistry is by doing stuff together. It doesn't have to be drinking or embarrassing somebody. It's just experiences together.
Yeah.
We did that with the Sounders. We would go to Charleston and we'd plan for preseason. We'd go paintballing. We went to Phoenix. We did high level go karting outside on a big track, and those are the things that people remember, not necessarily the just making people feel like shit.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, we're going to switch gears again. So this is the most hilarious fan interactions category. So have you seen somebody out in the world? And you can obviously most hilarious, lighthearted and fun, not somebody shaking their finger at you and calling you a piece of shit. I'm sure that happens frequently at a lot of different levels for all three of you guys. I'm sure you've had targets on your back, many times, but what have been some fan interactions that you've had that were like, oh, that was kind of fun. I like that.
I got two. So in Columbus, we were in the Western Conference Championship. It was we played Chicago. It was probably the best game I've ever been a part of and most intense. And Robbie Rogers had thrown his we had this corner in Columbus with the crazy fans, right? And Robbie had taken off his jersey at the end of the game and thrown it into the jersey. And we're all hanging out, partying afterwards, having a good time. And then someone texted him hey, is this your jersey? And the guy had already afterwards put it up on eBay to sell it right afterwards. And we're just what? You're there to support us. And literally you couldn't even wait until the next day to try and make money off of this jersey. It's what? Keep the jersey, give it to a friend or someone else, but you had to just sell it right after the game. What are you doing?
That's funny.
And I think my most fun interaction was in Vancouver, actually. And this just goes to show Canadians are the nicest people on the planet. And I never really understood the stereotype until we played in Vancouver. It was before the game, right before kickoff, and you get 10, 15 minutes back in the locker room after warm-up. So we're walking in, and you have to walk by their crazy fan section, and they're all chanting "Who are ya? Who are ya?" Right, the typical soccer chant. And I just go up to them, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Brad. I'm from Phoenix, and I play for the Sounders, obviously." And he was like, "All right, well, have a good game today. Good luck." And I was like, "No." No, give me something back. If you were in Portland, they'd tell you to go freaking light yourself on fire and jump off a bridge. But of course, being up in Vancouver, the Canadian, it's hey, best of luck today. Congrats on being here, sort of thing. It's
that's funny.
Totally fulfilled that Canadian vibe for me.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
those Portland fans are bonkers, dude. I mean that made me think of Roger, because Roger Levesque, he did a little stint and played for Portland, but they hated him so much that even though he was on the field playing for their team, they were burning his jersey in the stands while he was playing for the Timbers. It was just the craziest thing.
That's wild.
Yeah, they're nuts.
I used to love interacting with the fans after games, and I did that all the way from 2006 and on. And there's a guy that sits in the ECS still. His name's Ron, and he has my jersey. He still wears it every single game from 2006.
Which one? What color?
It's a gray Sounders goalkeeper jersey. It's a Nike one. He's still back there. I see him on TV, and I go, shit, that's Ron. That's Ron still wearing that thing. He's still going.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was interesting for me to I got one. It was interesting to go from like, I played in front of crowds that had 8 people, and then I played in front of the crowds at the Sounders for a while. But the small crowds where you could hear what they're saying to you, those are the best. Because the only option was for me as a goalkeeper sitting back there and having like 8 fans from the Minnesota Thunder yelling at me, is to turn around and interact with them. I mean. Right. I get scored on, and they're like, talking all sorts of shit, and it's like, I guess you're right. I mean, yeah, I didn't do a very good job. And it kind of levels the playing field, and like, you kind of just interact with them that way. But yeah, it's the fandom is bizarre, and it's really, really crazy to see what it's turned into, especially in Seattle and some of these different markets. But
that's got to be the same, James. If you're playing away from home in a bullpen, do you get like just absolutely slaughtered by fans that are just staring at you while you're trying to warm up?
Yeah, sometimes. Some of the bullpens are pretty exposed to fans, and I'll get yelled at and stuff, and there'll be people yelling like "ball" when I throw a pitch that's not a strike or whatever. This year, when I was in, where was I? I forget where, but I was warming up, and my pitching coach was next to me, and I was getting ready for the game, and he was like, "Hey, who's older, Pryor or you?" Because I getting older and stuff like that, and Pryor's like the coach, and he's making fun of me for being old. So I started getting that one because I thought I was looking old.
You're getting older.
I was getting older. I think that some of my favorite experiences when I was younger, we had the Maple Grove in Seattle when it was at Safeco. And I'd walk out for my games. There'd be some people there early, and they'd be doing the AAA chant, and that was pretty cool. I got to meet those people, actually. They came down on the field one time. I got to take a picture and stuff. They brought down their little maple tree, and took a picture with them. So that was fun. When I was in New York, I would take the subway in 19 to the game every day and then home. So I got to kind of interact with the fans on my way home from the game every night. And,
that's pretty wild.
Wow.
I could kind of like blend in, on my way to the game and stuff like that. And sometimes I'd be pitching that night or something like that, and I'd hear some fans like talking shit about me. He's like, "Oh, Paxton's pitching tonight. Guy fucking sucks." I had a tough first half of the season. I was like, "Oh shit," and so I was just kind of hid. And then there's games that I like pitched well, and that obviously when you play well, it's a lot more fun to like interact with fans. When you don't play well, you kind of feel a little bit like, especially for me, because I was like so tied up in the sport. Like my self-worth was so tied up in the sport that if I played well, I felt good about myself and I felt good to interact with the fans. But if I didn't, then I was kind of felt more like, oh, I'm not a good person, and I had a harder time like interacting with fans. I'd still sign and stuff like that if they asked me to, but I wouldn't be nearly as talkative with fans if I hadn't played well. Yeah. So that was interesting dynamic. Trying to think where else. Boston, when you go in, there's like, you kind of park on the street because it's an old stadium. They don't really have like a parking lot for the players. So you see people kind of waiting for you as you're going in and coming out of the game after the game. And sometimes they're yelling at us to come sign or stuff like that. And I had some good interactions with fans out there, just signing for them. A bunch of kids normally asking for autographs and stuff. So that was really fun. There's some out in Seattle, I get like random people coming up to me here and there saying, "Oh, you're Big Maple. That's so cool." That kind of thing. Nothing crazy though for me.
There's a girl who got asked for my autograph on her forearm after one game, and then the next like 2 days it was tagged on like Facebook. This is back in Facebook, and she had inked it from a tattoo artist on her forearm. Wow. Yeah, wild.
I wonder if she still got it.
That's dedication. Probably went over it with something else by now, but
maybe. That's wild. Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's rock star shit right there.
Yeah, that is rock star, dude.
It was really cool when I went down with the Dodgers and helped James and to go out to the bullpen with him and see him signing autographs for little kids like on baseballs. I mean, that for me, that's like such a iconic image is the MLB guy signing a baseball for a little kid and all that stuff. And that part was really, really cool. I do remember he brought something up about, when the guys on the subway were saying he's going to pitch and that he sucks and all that kind of stuff. That when Casey got red carded in 2009 and I came on for him, and I'm already nervous or whatever because I have no idea what I'm doing out there, and then to jog on the field, and then it was a free kick by Claudio Lopez from Kansas City, went over the goal. I took the goal kick, and then I heard a woman yell, and she's a Sounders fan. She's like, "Who are you?" Like, just kept, and I just kind of slowly turned around and shrugged my shoulders, like, I don't know why I'm out here.
Read the back of my jersey.
Yeah.
I wonder how it was like if you were playing, like, let's say in Boston, like you said, as a home. That's your home stadium, and at that time, let's say you're in like when was that stadium built?
I don't know. Long time ago, dude.
50s?
I don't know. Probably. I'm not exactly sure. We'd have to look it up.
And people were probably just like playing for the team, probably living pretty close to the stadium, and they just have to walk out and I'm sure there are fans just berating them after games back in the day. I mean, that was the biggest thing around, right?
Yep.
I can't imagine like the exposure that you got back then and some of the heat that you had to take. And there were no rules back then. I don't think it was just that. Had
nobody was recording it. Like now,
Right.
like a lot of these guys like whip out their cell phone and they're recording you or taking pictures or whatever. But back then, people could get away with a lot more. I wonder what it was like, and I'm sure, they probably spent more time in groups. You probably weren't like going out by yourself as much. Whereas now there's like so much security out there when we're leaving.
Dude, that stadium was built in 1912, by the way.
That's insane.
Wow.
Holy shit.
That's wild.
Rebuilt substantially in 1934, so we're talking like pre-car. And people fucking walking around.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's interesting, like the fan interactions and, going on social media and seeing, what people say and how they, commenting on a picture. Like I posted a picture of me and my wife, and then you just get like berated, you piece of shit, you're washed up. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, James, when I go and look at your Instagram and I go look at the comments and some of your photos, I'm appalled by some of the bullshit that like, so I wonder like, what is the, like, do you not read those? Do you like, what do you do with that shit?
I used to, I used to read them and stuff like that, and it would get me down, man. Like there were people like, especially when like betting started happening, people say, "You owe me $100, you suck, you're terrible," whatever. Anytime I didn't pitch well, and then when I pitched well, it's like crickets, like nothing gets said. But when you don't, you get lit up. I think the thing that bothered me the most is when they. No, I have heard of guys getting Venmo requested though, for stuff like that. But I think the thing that bothered me the most was when they would search out my wife's Instagram when she had one, and they'd comment on her pictures. And there was one person that said like, "I'm gonna find your house and burn it down and kill your kids," and I'm like, "Whoa!" Like this is going way too far. Like she got rid of her Instagram for like part of that reason. I think there's more than that, but like part of that, I just stopped reading it. I really stopped going on Instagram a lot, and I stopped posting because of all of that. I just didn't want to kind of be forced to read or see the pop-ups and stuff like that, the notifications that you got a message someone telling you suck and you should go kill yourself and stuff like that. Just kind of over the top stuff that just doesn't do me any good. You know
what we should do? We should turn this podcast into like finding those Instagram handles and then inviting them now on the podcast that you're retired. Yeah. And then it's just like, hey, we're going to have a one-on-one interview, and then all four of us are on here as like an intervention and just start peppering them with questions.
I don't go to Burger King and make fun of you.
Yeah.
While you're
Did you see
working.
that bit that Jimmy Fallon did with Robinson Cano back in the day? It was like I
Oh
think
yeah, I did
when
see
he
that.
was when they had the cardboard cutout of him in New
Yeah,
York when I think it was when he went to Seattle, and they're
yeah,
like, "Oh, what would you tell
yeah.
Robbie Cano if he was standing in front of you right now?" And people would be talking shit to this cardboard poster, and then Robinson Cano would walk out from behind it. They'd be like, "Oh, Mr. Cano, nice to meet you," all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you, like, people aren't going to actually do that in person. It's because they
Yeah.
feel safe talking shit to
Yeah.
a computer screen or a poster or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just childish. I mean, I think that it's not surprising that that occurs because it's a game and it means different things to different people. And because it's a game that's at a high level with high visibility and betting, and I bought the ticket, I bought the jersey, I own you, I've been a fan since before you were even in this city, kind of a thing. And then it you just kind of revert back, it sounds like, to sort of childish behavior that's fairly immature. And I think for a lot of people, it's sort of off gassing a little bit, and it's just not in the right direction. Like you're frustrated at your job, or you had a bad day or whatever, and it's like, well, James Paxton is never gonna, I'm never gonna have to confront him or deal with him. I'm just gonna off gas this toxic bullshit somewhere. It's got to go somewhere, and it's really unfortunate, you know.
I'm a little worried about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
Oh, I'm a little worried about the whole gambling part of it. They're really promoting that in baseball now, is like the gambling piece. And with people like losing money and stuff like that on these games and players and whatnot, I mean, that can go dark like really soon. Like somebody bets a lot of money on a game and a player messes it up. Like, you make an error or make a bad pitch, give up a home run in a big spot. I mean, I can see that getting ugly fast, for players. And there's some people that aren't necessarily mentally sane out there, that might take it just too far. And I get a little worried for like player safety. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops and how they keep players safe from the downsides of gambling.
This is probably the best time for me to tell you that I'm talking to Sportsbet or Sports King as a sponsor for this podcast. So
there you
Get your
go.
bets in.
There you go.
yeah. So maybe that's not going to work
Well,
out.
the betting culture is crazy. If you go to England, you could bet on anything inside of a soccer game that you could imagine. I
Like
mean,
what?
who's gonna have the first touch? Who's gonna obviously score the first goal? Which team is gonna what jersey they're gonna wear? I think there's anything and everything that you can bet on inside the stadium, which is wild. So you can place like paper bets or digital bets in the stadium while the game's going on.
Wow.
Yeah, it is like really promoted in those stadiums. From what I remember, I'm pretty sure they still do it, but I could be wrong. But when I was there, this is a decade ago, like you could walk into a stadium and make your bets and do everything in the stadium, which is pretty wild.
This center midfielder is going to get 40 touches in the game or whatever.
Whoa.
Is there much blowback on players that you know about? Like,
It's not too. I haven't heard too much. I'm sure there's been some major betting articles. I mean, players betting on themselves and from different sources.
Kind of
but
stuff,
no, I don't remember. I'm sure we don't get all the news from the UK, but I'm sure that there's blowback of a player underperforming and kind of shit in the bed. Like Steven Gerrard. What is that? Like almost 10 years ago, slipping and then losing the championship from one. I'm sure a lot of people had money riding on Liverpool winning the league that year, and then he makes one slip that he's never done before in a 20-year career.
Right.
And I'm sure that he was faced with some adversity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition to a little softer one before we go to it. Baker Mayfield got some heat for he got caught on camera putting zins in on the sideline, and then the NFL was like going to look at it, and then they said, it's fine, it's okay. I mean, there's also reports of some basketball player putting a zin pouch in his foreskin during the games because he didn't want to have it in his mouth, which is
oh my god,
pretty incredible.
Pretty ballsy.
Something like that.
Thank you,
dude.
What do you do? Did you clothespin it off?
I mean, maybe he's got enough that it just stays.
Wow.
I mean, I've heard of like hockey players putting it in between their toes while playing.
Oh,
I've heard that one.
Yeah.
oh, because
they can't spit on the ice. You know, like when they do tobacco, they not Zins, but like actual tobacco, they put between their toes because they can't spit.
You sweat, and then it absorbs through your body that way.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
just a dip of Copenhagen in between your toes, inside your skates.
Yeah. I mean, I know women's soccer players that are doing like 12 milligram. Zins.
Whoa. That you can only find in Europe.
Not Zins, but like the European
the
style.
Swedish ones.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen those.
Yeah, pretty intense. So it's definitely out there. I could never play with one in. There's no way. But I can understand football. He's losing his mind, and then he's like, dude, I gotta take the edge off here, otherwise I'm gonna absolutely lose my shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I definitely could never play with one. But I knew people that like chewed gum religiously. I mean, Chris Wondolowski was like on the gum, and he would just like chew all game long to get. I don't know. Maybe baseball's more on the gum train now versus because it was dip for forever, right? Or is it still pretty prominent?
It's still fairly prominent. I'd say Zin is much more prominent now. It used to be before Zin, it was like tobacco, you know, and they've made rules now that you can't have it, and some guys still do, you know, and and they get fined if they get caught on TV doing tobacco. But with the Zin, like you can't even tell that it's in, you know, and you don't have to spit or anything like that. And now I'd say that's much more prevalent. I could never play with one in, you know, like I dipped, and then I stopped doing that, and I went to the Zin, and I do that now instead. Not that it's a great habit, but you know, I got it. And I never played with one in, but before and after for sure, you know.
I wonder how did the dip thing become so baseball?
I think there's always been like a spitting thing in baseball, you know. You spit on the dirt, you spit on the ball, you know, your hands when you're gripping the bat, whatever. I don't know if it's a grip thing for baseball, you know, like I once had someone tell me like, oh, there's no better rub on a baseball than dip spit, you know, makes it like you get that tack on the ball or whatever.
A little grit.
Yeah, a little grit. But I don't know like why it was so, such a part of baseball. You know, I think it just always has been.
Well, I mean, it's seeds, it's dip, it's gum, you know, wrapping and I had a couple of high-level baseball players that I was friends with in high school that would like take beech nut and then wrap bubble gum around beech nut and then just have this massive lipper and then just these gnarly string just all game long. Just what is
beech nut? Cheek.
Yeah,
it's a type of like chewing tobacco.
Oh,
Red Man beech nut. Yeah, it's like it's like a loose.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, but I came from a small town too, and like a lot of my buddies chewed, and I tried when I was 16, and I immediately was just like, I got the craziest buzz of my life, and then immediately went to the bathroom and just yacked it all up. And now that smell of stuff, I can't even come close to it. Like it's
probably a good
so
thing for your
fucking
health.
gross anyway. It's disgusting.
Yeah. It's starting dry even. Okay, let's move on. Superstitions. You know, Brad, I know that you got a tight timeline here. Let's maybe start with you on some of the superstitions that you had when you were playing.
Yeah, there's really only one. I would always put like my left shin guard on before my right shin guard, and it was just part of my routine. But that was it. I never got into the heavy superstition or I'm gonna win because of this. I tried to make routines that were attainable home or away. So if I was going to do something, I made sure that I was able to do it away from home in the locker room as I could home. So, you know, never trying to eat anything specific before a game, because if I wasn't able to eat that away from home, I'd be in my own head. But we did have like a performance coach early on. Actually started with my college team, and it was just about affirmations before a game. And so I would try to write 3 things that I was going to accomplish during that game in the bathroom, and then on a piece of paper, and then just say them over and over again, and then shove them in my sock, just to make sure that it was always staying with me throughout the game. And if I made a mistake, I could like feel that like point of contact and just kind of get back on the right page and keep those affirmations in the back of my mind.
I like that. That's cool.
That was, always was a big part of mine. There was one actually that there was a player named Guillermo Berros Esqueloto, and he was an Argentinian guy, played for Boca Juniors, won insane amount of championships down, with the biggest club in Argentina, and then he came to Columbus. And he had this thing before games where right before he'd go into the shower and just put his hands above his head and jump 11 times. And one day I saw him doing it, and it was like a thing that you wasn't supposed to see because it was like a quick thing. And then he was like, "You got to start doing this." And I was like, "Okay." So I started doing it then that season, and we won a championship. And it carried on throughout my career, where if I did those jumps, then it was like, okay, we're going to win today.
That's awesome.
And, I never had a losing season, so I guess it worked.
You went from, I've got just one, and then just load like 4 of those,
Yeah, I guess so. Huh?
I wonder how many more you got. Did you step over the line when you checked in? When you got onto the field, did you like avoid the chalk mark or the line of the field?
Yeah, I always avoided lines, straight lines, anywhere on the field. I always tried to avoid any lines on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could. While playing, no, but if you weren't in the mode of like having the ball and you could control it, yeah. That's like that's got to be baseball's biggest. Avoiding the line. Every time I watch a baseball game, everyone avoids the line.
Yeah, pitchers, like when they're going to the mound, like I always jump the line. I know most guys jump the line. There's like very few, I think, that like step on the line, but that's just always been a thing that I've done and I've seen guys do is on your way to the mound, you jump the line. And on your way back from the mound, when the inning's over, you jump the line. But yeah, I'm trying to think if I had any others.
Gotta have a bunch,
James. Oh yeah. There's some for sure. Like what I would eat before a game, like I was a big like breakfast guy. So I'd always have like a breakfast place I would go to. I think in Seattle when I was at home, it was like Original Pancake House before I would go, get a big breakfast. For a while there was a couple of years where I'd have Jimmy John's for lunch before I go to the field. Like it'd be like breakfast earlier at like 10. And then at like 2 o'clock before I went to the field, I'd order Jimmy John's in Kirkland. And I think they figured out that it was me because they'd like write on my sandwich, like on the wrapping, they say "Good luck today" or whatever, because I would order it every time before I pitched.
You think they figured out it was you?
Well, they definitely figured it out at some point. Yeah. So eating, my pregame eating was a big part of it. Like in each city that we'd go to, I'd have a certain breakfast spot that I'd go to and eat there. The cleats thing,
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the food in other cities is just the best.
We usually stay in the same hotels, right? Even with different teams, you stay in the same hotels, and there'd be the same food nearby or whatever. And I would always go get the same thing from different places. I'd put on what cleat did I put on? I gotta like think about it now. I would put on I think it was like my right cleat before my left. And that was just more so like that's just always how I did it. I didn't really even have to think about it. It's just kind of what I did. Trying to think what else, dude. More stuff for sure. I always wore the same stuff, the same undershirt. I had like the 3/4 sleeve cut off shirt that I'd wear, the same one all year. Hats. If I lost a game or I pitched really poorly, hat was going in the garbage can. I'd get a new hat because it was the hat's fault for sure. Threw out some cleats a couple times, because I had a really bad game. Cleats were out of there, gone. Got a new pair of cleats. What else? I can't think of anything else right now, but I'm sure something will pop up with something somebody else says.
What about music? Like any sort of like music or song that was like your go-to? Thunderstruck, like right before you walk out?
No, I was always a 2000s hip hop guy. So like that was like my in the gym before the game warming up, I'd have the 2000s hip hop going on. But I wasn't a huge music guy, so I didn't really have like one song that I had to listen to before a game. Early in my career, I had a hard time like getting jacked up for games. I was just always like too relaxed. So I used to close my eyes and think about hitting somebody and getting in a fight with the other team. Like I'd visualize like getting in a fight with the other team so that I could like get that like intensity going. Because early in my career, it would take like a ball coming back and hitting me to like I'd get pissed off, and I'd always pitch best when I was a little pissed off. So I kind of learned how to get myself there without something making it happen.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Drago, you didn't have any?
I was pretty routine based. So yeah, if I needed to eat at the right time, I needed to get the same stuff I could home or away. I was always big on I needed to get to the facility early so I could feel settled. Like that was my big thing. Like I need to get there. Like I'd be a stress case all day until I got to the actual facility. So even when I lived with Jakewa, we didn't always drive together because I would get up and go like fucking early, just like so I could get in there. Stick with the routines, but I knew that, and Tommy knew this too, is that if I brought out multiple pairs of goalie gloves out to training, he would stop me and tell me to go back. He goes, "No, we're not doing that shit today." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Every time you bring out more than one pair of gloves, you're in your fucking head. You're in it. Like you're going to be switching them around. You're doing this and that. Go pick a pair and come out and train." And I was like, "All right, that's fine. I get it." But I was
Thinking too much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the gloves' fault that I'm not catching the ball anyway. I mean, in reality, it's. But he caught on to that pretty quickly, and me and him have a good relationship. So he was like, "Nope, we are not doing this today." And it's probably for his own sanity than anything else. But other than that, though, I mean, not much.
What are some superstitions that you saw other people do? Maybe you don't have to name names, but what are some of them? I mean, the 11 jumps before getting in the shower. That's a pretty specific superstition. What other ones did you see that were like, whoa, that's weird?
I don't think I really caught on to anyone else's. I think it's a pretty private thing. I just, like I said, I happened to walk in at like the moment, that he was doing it. So I would have never seen it otherwise. Chad Marshall always had to take Imodium before the games. That was about as superstitious, routine based as he got, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too many people talk about him in the locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of it. I think a lot of it's like pretty private. I think for guys, a lot of it's like getting dressed. A lot of guys get dressed certain ways. I talked to one guy that said he always had to go jersey first. Had to put his jersey on first and then the rest of his clothes. So he'd be standing there ass naked with his jersey on, because that was the first thing he had to put on. But yeah, everyone's got something. Even if they don't know they've got it. And food's another big one. Like a lot of guys would eat the same thing before especially like starting pitchers that only pitched once every 5 or 6 days. You would eat the same thing for lunch or whatever. I know one guy's wife would always bring him this is in the minor leagues, he'd always eat like a Subway sandwich, and so she'd bring it to the field for him or something like that because he always had like the same type of Subway sandwich before he pitched. But yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
It's like it's the placebo effect, right? Like if it works, it works. It doesn't.
It's not stupid if it works.
It's right.
If your 11 jumps work, it's not stupid.
Yeah.
If you do it and it doesn't work, then it's stupid.
Then it's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
One or two more here, and then we can wrap this up, make this a little bit of a shorter one. What are some of the sayings, one-liners that you heard from coaches that are just like in your brain?
Control the controllables.
Control the controllables.
Common sense isn't very common.
Yeah, it's a Schmetzer one.
That's a Schmetzer one. Yeah. I think those two probably stick out the most from my coaching days here.
Ziggy wasn't big on one-liner?
Ziggy was luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
That's a good one.
I think there's a lot of iterations of that, but that was his kind of interpretation of that one. Gosh, yeah. That's about
can't
all I can
think
think
of,
from
like-
those guys.
Yeah, I
I can
can't
just
think
hear
of like
Tommy telling me to get
sayings.
my ass off the ground.
Get up.
Get up.
Yeah.
That's all I hear.
I had one pitching coach that every time before, after I warmed up, because our pitching coach is with us when we're warming up for the game in the bullpen, and he would always say, "What would he say? He'd say something about like buzzsaw, like let's go, like time to bring out the buzzsaw," because he wanted me to go like dominate this lineup, kind of thing. That was Mel Stottlemyre Jr. would say like, "All right, start the buzzsaw," or something like that. That was back in like 17, 18 when I was pitching like really well. He would say that to me. But
Buzzsaw, be a buzzsaw.
yeah, I can't think of really sayings that coaches would say. Like coaches, I don't know, I feel like in baseball, like we don't really get addressed by the coaches that much. There'll be like talks here and there, but there's not a lot of like team meetings, I would say. Are there a lot of team meetings in soccer? Like you guys have a meeting like every day?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have in spring training we have that, but then once the season starts, we don't really have a whole lot of like there'll be like hitters meetings, to get ready for the game sort of thing, pitchers meetings. But as a whole team with the head coach, the manager addressing the team happens once every month, maybe,
Oh, wow.
once every few weeks. So we didn't really get a whole lot of like sayings like that. Like pitching coaches would have stuff like, control the controllables, like you said, pound the strike zone, stuff like that, but really nothing that was like groundbreaking.
Yeah.
There was one from high school football, who's my high school football coach was a legendary guy, and when I first heard it, I was like, that's so dark, and I love it. I was bitching about being held or something like that. He's holding me, he's like, McCormick, there's no fucking refs at practice, and I was like, okay. And he goes, and listen to this, and I want you to remember this. If you're not cheating, you don't want it bad enough. And I was like, oh. But it kind of lingered a little bit for me. And I, when I played in college, I did some underhanded stuff. Like I'd pinch dudes and elbow and push them and talk shit and flop when I needed to. Like I was that scrappy kind of guy you hated to play against. And I think that sort of echoed in my mind a little bit. Like if you can find an edge somewhere and bend the rules, you should do it.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, we do that a lot in soccer, right? Like soccer's big on like taking falls and like pretending to get hurt and then popping right back up, that kind of thing. That's just like part of the game, right?
Yeah, it's a cultural thing mostly, but
yeah.
Any advantage you can get.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to try and win a game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I want to speak to that a little bit because, and again, like I everybody listening knows I didn't play pro. The thing is like when casual fans complain about soccer players going down easily, I have to remind them that these are people who are sprinting at the top of their speed, diving at your legs, right? Like you're running as fast as you can. The guy next to you is running as fast as he can, and your legs collide. Someone's going to fall, and it's usually going to hurt. And so, if you pull your head back and throw your arms up, you may be selling it. But the fact is, like, those collisions happen. You fall down on the ground fairly frequently because when was the last time somebody dove at your ankles running full speed? Never. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. I haven't had anybody do that to me.
You're right.
It doesn't really happen in baseball.
Yeah,
Unless you're stealing bags and stuff like that. But
yeah, you've sprinted up and down the field 5 times, and the same player keeps playing you the same ball up the wing, and you're just like, I just need a fucking break. And so you just kick someone's ankles. And it's like, all right, I need a break. Or you feel like you may have gotten touched, and you just take a dive because you're so exhausted.
You just want to rest. Is that what it is? Guys just want to take a beat? Like,
it depends on the situation, yes. If you're a striker in front of goal, you're just looking for any advantage. If they do foul me or I feel any contact, I'm going down because I'm 18 yards from goal, and it's a set-piece opportunity, right, closer to goal. And if they don't touch me, I'm going to just try and back into them as much as possible to keep feeling that contact. And if they don't, well, then I'm in an advantageous position to slip a ball into another player. But yeah, sometimes it's the case of like, this guy's played me the ball 5 times up and down the wing, and I got nothing left in my legs. And so I feel any brush of contact and try to win a foul. And most of the time it doesn't work out in your favor, but you got to shoot your shot.
And there's definitely
I got to jump on 11:15. You got to edit this one out.
Okay.
Boys.
See you, Brad.
See, dude.
All right.
See, dude. There's definitely degrees to the theatrics as well, because you have guys that when they get hit, it's like they got shot from a sniper up in the upper deck. I mean, that's the stuff that people hate, I think, is it's like, come on, dude. And then the fake limp afterwards, and then all of a sudden you can jog just fine. It's like, that stuff gets tiresome, I think. There is a strategy to it. I mean, just like in any sport, you can flop a little bit and get something that's benefiting you, but some of this shit's pretty wild.
Yeah. Like the guy that gets kicked and then falls on the ground and rolls 6 times. Like everyone knows what you're doing, but it does stop the play because there was a foul or there might have been a foul. And now, again, maybe you want that because you need 15 seconds to catch your breath or whatever. But yeah, it's all gamesmanship. It's all part of the process. Like if the advantage is taken away from you from someone kind of kicking you, and you could play through it, or you got legitimately kicked and you fall down, like, yeah, it's a foul. Why would you try to work through that? Because then put yourself at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no downside to taking a dive, when nothing happened to you, right? Like they're not going to or does the other team get the ball? How does that work? I don't really know the rules in soccer too much. Like Brad was saying that it doesn't really work out in your favor too often, but you have to try, right? So what's the downside of taking a fall? Is there any downside?
I mean, occasionally you'll get carded for simulation. If you're faking it and it's obvious, you'll get carded for, what they call simulation. But that's pretty rare. Mm-hmm. If you do simulate and you fall down, then the play is gone. Like you're laying there on the ground while there's either an attacking opportunity or a counter attacking opportunity, and then you're just laying there like a little bitch while the game is going on past you. Yeah. So there's a little risk there if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like it's gotten better recently.
I do like videos of your teammate. If someone takes a dive and the teammate's going and yelling at them to get up and get off the ground because they're laying on the ground when they should be getting up and defending. There's videos that show that, and that stuff's that's good because it is just dramatized. Like it's way overdone at some point.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it's crept into all sports. You see it in the NBA all the
Basketball.
time. You see it.
Yeah.
I saw it in the NFL. I mean, in the Seahawks game, the Bills quarterback got bumped and he threw his hands in the air and it draws bigger attention to it. But it's like, okay, let's pause this whole thing. Let's get let's get back to serious crushing.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I mean, I think that suits your personality too, Ben. Like you played with an edge and a toughness that was pretty unique and pretty intense, and that there's no glory in flopping around on the ground. I did
it though. As we were talking about where were we playing? I think we were playing at UBC or Simon Fraser up in Canada. And I remember coming out for a through ball and the guy beat me to it, went around me, and I grabbed my forehead. And I must have sold it really well because the ref blew his whistle. Trainer Brian, the trainer, came running on, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you okay?" What, doing a concussion test on me, basically. He didn't find any. I didn't get touched. He's like, after the game, he actually gave me a stern talk about how I actually made him feel. He was worried about me.
Wow.
Sold it that well. I was like, nice, good.
Good acting right there, dude.
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does happen in the NBA more and more too. You see guys throwing up their hands and he pushed me in the hands.
You look at LeBron doing it, dude. You're 6'8", 285 pounds, and that bump it just can't do it to you, and it's bonkers. Embellishing and bringing attention to it, I get it, that's fine, but come on, man, grow some
just
nuts.
a little soft. It's not really like the the brand we want for the game. You know, I feel like soccer, it's expected. Like people kind of just like so used to it in soccer, it's kind of like, oh, whatever. You know, it's just kind of like that's what soccer is. But other sports, it's just kind of like weird to see in other sports, and in my opinion, to see like guys acting
Well,
like
it's like
that and trying to sell
it's
stuff.
like catchers framing pitches and stuff like that. I mean, you use it to that edge, but when it goes beyond that, you're like, this is just we're losing the heart of the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more performance art at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Sweet. Well, that we've gone through just about all the topics, unless somebody has a puke or shit during the game story to tell. I don't.
No, I do have one guy that I came through the minor leagues with that he was a starter, and every game before the game he would puke in the dugout bathroom because he was just so worked up, dude. Like it was every time. And then he eventually moved to the bullpen and he stopped puking because like he didn't have that build up. It's just kind of like the phone rings and you go. You know, with this whole starting routine of having days to kind of like wait and that anticipation builds. And I guess he'd just get to game time and couldn't take it anymore and he puked and then he went out and pitched.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really the only like puke story that I know.
If we go
far
back
as that
to
goes.
the routines and the superstitions, everything I did, honestly, full transparency here, was to optimize my bathroom schedule before I could go out in the field.
Oh, that's why you were at the field so early.
That's why I timed everything as best I could, and if that part wasn't right, it was going to be a tough day at the office. So, like,
Yeah.
full transparency. That's why I'm like, was it really geared for me playing well, or was it really so I could go take an appropriate shit before I play?
Take your pregame dump. Yeah. For sure. You gotta leave time for that, man. You gotta have time. For sure. You can't be rushing a poop.
Well, the closer you get to
It's not a fun place
game
to be.
time, and the nerves start kicking in a little bit, like it's just not going to happen. And then psychologically, it felt like I was carrying an extra 20 pounds in there. And I don't think if you pull it out and weighed it, it would be 20 pounds, but it felt like that. So
Yeah. I had a weird one. I couldn't pee like during the game. Even if I had to pee, like I would like hold it because I didn't want to change the way that my body felt when I was out there pitching. Because I felt like if I peed, I would like relax too much, and you kind of get that like and you feel like so relaxed. Then you try and go out there and compete, and I would always find like, oh, I'm too relaxed now. You know,
Interesting.
I would pee like 15 times before the game. You know, but then sometimes you'd have to pee like during the game while I was pitching, and I was like, oh, I got to hold it. Like I can't go because I'm going to get too relaxed and like kind of shut down almost. So that's kind of weird, but that was one for me.
There must have been some game when you were 14 or 15 where you had to take a piss during the game and then gave up a home run or something. Like didn't necessarily like the wheels didn't come off, but like that was like using Ben's terminology, that was mapped down to like, okay, well it's not an option for me anymore. I'm just have to hold it.
Right. Yeah. Something like that must have happened because like it was just a thing that I never did. I never did it.
That's fascinating.
Yep.
Cool. Well, this was a good one. This was fun. This was nice to get through some of this stuff. I have a number of these. I think periodically we'll do episodes just like this. And for all the athletes that are listening, you're thinking about, well, what was my thing? What is my thing? How did I? Yeah, it's just cool because no matter at what level you played, whether you were a high school wrestler or a college football player or whatever, you've gone through this stuff just like we have, and that's fun. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll have a group editing session on this one.
Oh God, thanks a lot. Like, that was pretty tame. It's pretty tame.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, it could have been worse. That's for sure.
Could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Brad's Chad story in the shower is pretty good. You gotta leave that in.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's a couple other things I thought of that. Yeah, that's risky.
Yeah, some stuff you can share publicly, some stuff you can't.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You got to find that line in a podcast, though, or else it's not interesting. You got to kind of like walk that line of like what people actually want to hear, they're interested in, and then like if you're too boring and too like, there's no, there's nothing there, people are not going to care to listen to
switch
it.
off. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty more ammunition, I'm sure, for later episodes like this. So we'll close it out there, guys. Thank you to the listeners, as always. If you're listening to this on a podcast player and you want to go watch it on YouTube and make some comments, like I invited you to in the trailer, let us know what you think. Share stories. What do you want to hear more about? What sort of topics are really fascinating to you? What's your role in sports? If you're a coach, a player, a parent, let us know, because we are going to be watching that very closely, and we want to tailor this content for you. So everyone's listening now, go back to the other episodes and watch them on YouTube, and let us know what you think. And till next time, fellas, here on Athlete Complete.
Run on.